Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel focused on immersive spaces, sonic experiences, and everything in between. And this one, as I'm going to get into in the next set of videos I'll be doing, really does a bit of both, or will be doing a bit of both in terms of trying to use the Spotykach Looping Playground as something that I possibly can use to perform and or do sonic explorations in a given space. So I think this, to start off here, why don't we do a brief unboxing to see exactly what you get in the case of this first pre-order, or the first 100 of these. All right, so we'll take a look here at the unboxing of the Spotykach. And just full disclosure, I paid full price for this. It's shipped out of, I believe, Rotterdam. And so you're seeing here what you're going to get inside. They're going to have a complete manual available later. I know that's in development. This is the card just showing out of the first 100. Again, I just squeaked in, and this is number 98. This is the diagram, I think, which is pretty helpful explaining the layout kind of the blocks of the Spotykach. You get a cool sticker, you get some cables. One of the things, again, is if you're in the first 100, you get that amazing contact microphone. I think that's a piece of jewelry. I don't think it's like has a electronic purpose, but it's super cool. To me, it looks like a piece of jewelry. So if anyone knows, you can comment on YouTube here and tell me what it is. But I love it. It's got that cool aesthetic. You've got a USB to C to C cable. You've got your one of the stackable Eurorack cables, kind of like the tip-top style. You got two of the tendril style small patch cables, get you going. And then of course you have your MIDI adapter. Haven't tried the MIDI yet. That's going to be in my future experiments. Again, this is the very cool contract microphone. I'm looking forward to really trying this out in some of my upcoming videos. I would say the next 2 or 3 that I do with you, I'm going to really show you kind of the use of kalimbas and a lot of my percussion instruments and homemade percussion boxes. I'm excited about this one. Again, I just have to get some phantom power going either through my Zoom or maybe an external box. More on that to come. And here's the unit itself after I took the bubble wrap off. Again, you can get more information here as I'm going to go through it in my demo, take you through all the aspects of it. Again, super well designed as I fumble with this and try to use my camera at the same time, but really impressed with the design. And as I get into in the demo here in just a bit, the functionality and the intuitive nature of it. So again, that's the unboxing of the Spotykach here. And the one thing I think that should be noted is if you're interested in the Spotykach, and again, this is a looper and really much more, is this was part of the first batch. I was actually numbered 98 out of 100, so I actually got kind of lucky and was able to pick one of these up. I'm recording this here in July of 2025, and from what I hear from the folks at Synthux Academy is that they will be offering more of these for purchase starting sometime in the fall. And you can certainly go to the website, check that out. They also have a really good YouTube presence that they talk about these devices. And I think many of you probably saw some of the Sonic State and other videos that were done at the last Super Booth in Berlin. And perhaps you had a chance to see some of the demos of the early prototype of this particular device. And I should also say that you're going to see that not everything is complete here. It's an early release, and I think probably what'll happen is there'll be a firmware update. And actually, I was thinking about this. I'm assuming the firmware update is going to come through the form of the USB cable, but no information on that yet. The other thing I should mention is that if you were in the first 100, you got one of these really, I haven't tried it yet, but it's an active contact microphone by Oka, and really high quality. These retail, I think, close to 180 to 200 USD. Haven't used it yet, and the thing to know about this microphone is, again, you're going to need your phantom power, your plus 48 volts, and I'm going to talk about that probably in a future video because I definitely want to use a high quality contact microphone with the Looping Playground, particularly when I'm using it in a field experimental situation. So I kind of showed you briefly in that unboxing what you're getting. There's really nothing on the bottom side except for the pads to kind of protect your table. There's a, it's almost like there's a port here, but it doesn't seem like, and I should say that there isn't an SD card on this, so I'm not exactly sure what that little port there is. I doubt it's an SD card. But anyway, it looks like a port of some sort. So more information will be out. If you're one of the persons who received one of these, there's a website currently that has kind of the starting points of a manual. And we were actually all encouraged to contribute to that website to give ideas, patch ideas, and also to get our names in the instruction manual, which will come out when this gets an official launch. So again, for those of us that purchased it early, we're getting kind of, it's not a production model, it's a finished piece of gear, but not all the firmware is done. And again, other things may evolve over time. And one of the things I like about a device that's, firmware driven, as opposed to a pure analog circuit device, is that you can actually get new features, alternative firmwares, etc. So I showed you the back panel. We'll talk about the front panel. You can see the back here as far as connectivity. It does come with one of the MIDI adapters, the TRS, the Mini. So it has an in and an out. Haven't tried it yet. This is the headphone jack, which I was trying today. Works perfect. It does not come with a power adapter. It looks like this is the voltage here. I'm running it off of USB-C off my MacBook. And actually, I'm super happy that it's USB powered, because one of the things I want to do is use this with a battery pack and then be able to take this in a field setting, which seems maybe a little extreme given its size, but I think it could be a cool set of possibilities for experimenting sonically with it in live spaces. This is a trim of some sort. I don't know what it does. Kind of hard to see there. It looks like a pot in there, and maybe is it a trim for input level or for gain, or I don't think it's for the headphones. So more info on that to come later. You kind of have your standard connections up at the top. So you're going to notice that there is a master clock here, so I can sync with any of my outboard gear, my MPC-1, certainly my Eurorack. I will be using this with Eurorack and demoing it as such. And then you also have sort of your standard outs, so your mono outs. What's cool about the Spotykach is the fact that it's double channel. So you have the A and the B side. And so you can work with these independent of one another. You can use them together. You can use them to affect one another, taking advantage of each of their sides, LFO, envelope follower, the gate outs. You see there's volt per octave here. And then there's this panel at the bottom that does a lot of the functions of the looper. You can also see that at the top there's a tap tempo. Haven't tried that yet, but yeah, it definitely works. And I'll show you later, this also, if you press and hold the tap tempo and move the, what essentially is like the wet and the dry. So if you're moving it all the way this way, I don't have it hooked up right yet to my headphones. I believe that's the wet signal, the in signal, and then the out signal is, I think, all this way. And then 50%, of course, 12 o'clock is going to be half and half. And what I like about the layout here is that it's pretty intuitive in terms of the left and the right sides. I was thinking about this the other day before this arrived. I was excited to get it in the mail today. I've owned so many loopers over the years. Everything from Roland 505s, the Eros looper. A lot of those loopers are more like track style loopers where you're going to, if you're a street performer, lay down, a drum track and then a vocal track, guitar track, etc. Maybe do a little manipulation, but not a lot of, micro granular stuff like we might get into here. And of course, speaking of granular, so many granular type samplers out there that we can think of. I've owned many of them. The Morphogene was one recently. You think of Instruo has two sort of different function. Their looper and I'm forgetting the name of the second one. I used to own one of those as well. There's also the Stardust from Qubit. I recently sold that. And one of the reasons I sold a couple of these loopers for my Eurorec setup is when I saw the Spotykach, I thought this, if I'm understanding, if I'm vibing with what the video is showing, I think this is going to finally do what I'm looking for in a looper. I also currently own, which I will be keeping because it's totally different than this, I own the IntelliGel grains module, which is really cool because it does some different things. It has an SD card available. You can do live sound. You can do live processing of sound and so forth. By the way, some of that may be possible with the Spotykach. I say may be possible because one thing that is not complete in this current firmware is exactly what these will be doing. Each side has a flux and a grit. And, you know, and I was going to say in some way the look of this, I'll get to that in a second, but the look of this certainly reminds, I think, people of some of the Make Noise gear, the O Coast. They had their sequencer as well. And then I used to own the, what's the name of the processor? The Strega, that's what it is. It has a similar look to it. I think in the form factor side of things, and you can see this doesn't appear to be, right? It doesn't appear to be Eurorack size. I'm actually glad it's not a Eurorack module just because of the fact that it would take up a lot of space. But I think it's wider than that format of the O Coast or the Strega. And certainly those units are different. They don't do looping like this unit. Also reminds me to some extent, just with the gold, I guess, of the old Folktech kind of design as well. Folktech's an interesting company. They kind of, you know, are under new management and hopefully will be bringing out some new gear because they've also done some innovative stuff, but they've kind of gone dormant as of the last year or more. So it kind of has that aesthetic look, and I actually like these. They remind me of hieroglyphs, or they just have a very futuristic, cool look to it. The black, the gold and the black, I think, very nice design. I also like the layout here. It reminds me of some other looping modules that maybe you think of. And in fact, what I was saying earlier, and I will get back to those effects, I haven't forgotten, but what I was saying earlier is I owned a lot of these other loopers, and there's one in particular, I'm not going to say which one, and I think this is doing what I thought that looper was going to do. There were just some limitations there, I would say. I loved Morphogene. I sold my Morphogene recently. Great unit. I love the whole connection with the work of Curtis Rhodes and his notions of the different temporal kind of orders of sound. And when we get into granularity, of course, we're talking really about this idea of taking sound and cutting it to chunks and doing new experiments, which is certainly kind of in line with my aesthetic and research as well. So I like the layout of this particular looper because you have the A and the B side. It's very intuitive. And then the functions are kind of split down the middle. You get some things like the mix control between the A and the B, the slider here. I like the little lights as well. I think it's very visually provocative and intuitive and informative in terms of telling you exactly what the functions are on the Spotykach. So again, to get back to the effects, what I saw in one of the online videos on YouTube is that eventually each side will get an effect. So these currently, I think, based on what I have understood about this, and I just emailed the developers to ask, but based on the video, they said this eventually will have flux effects and this will have grit effects. So does that mean this will be like kind of beads style or you know, granular style effects here, pitch delays, shimmer reverbs? I'm not sure. Will the grit be something like, you know, bit manglers, ring mods, distortion, etc.? It'd be interesting to see because I think having the effects in here are going to really expand the power of this because it's not just a looper. You have built-in modulation. You have, you know, maybe some things typical to loopers as we'll get into in the sound demos. You have your, for each side, again, there's a symmetry here. You have your reverse buttons. So once I have something in the buffer of each of these, then you can hit reverse and it plays it in reverse. And again, you get that nice feedback depending on the functions you use with each of the sides of the buffers, the A and the B. And again, from what I know, this is destructive, so it's not saved when you power it up. The buffers are deleted. Again, if anything changes, if functions change, you just want to watch videos and try to do some updates as well, because over the next couple of videos, I really want to give you a sense of what the possibilities are with the Spotykach and how I plan to use it. So to go over a little more of this, and then we're going to get into some sound demos. Again, you have your two buffers here. The volt per octaves are available. And one of the cool things, it includes a few cables, including these tendril type, which are 90 degree. I don't use these a lot, but it maybe makes sense to have some small cables. These are probably a little too large, because one of the things you can do is you could self-patch things based on your two modulation sources available here. I guess with the exception of, I'm assuming with the gate out here, you can also modulate the B, and the B can modulate the A. Haven't messed around with the volt per octave yet. But you have your two LFO sources here. They also have envelope followers, and you can choose the function. I haven't tried these out yet. And then I'm assuming, is that the attenuator for the amount? Because, you know, that LED is, it must be, right? The amount of LFO that's coming through the circuit. So what you would do is you would patch this, and then you could modulate other points on the playground. And then I'm assuming the cycle is the speed. Let's try that right now. Yeah, so that's slowing down, and now it's faster. So that appears to be the speed of it. It's kind of interesting. I just noticed this one here is square, and that one there is circular. So is that because of the waveforms, or I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, a little different. And you can then use these as output points if you like, anywhere on here, or your other Eurorack gear. Again, with your master clock here, with the ability to bring you know, gates in and out, you can obviously use it in tandem with other Eurorack and semi-modular gear. The A-B switch here, I haven't tried this yet, but I believe this is going to be a split mono on each channel. Middle is stereo, and I think the one to the right is somewhere in here described as, I saw it somewhere. This, by the way, comes with the unit, and I think initially it's necessary because it labels everything that is here on the unit. And again, with minor exceptions, it's almost a carbon copy, right? What's on the left is on the right. Very similar, with, I think, some exceptions on what, maybe the LFO. And then, of course, you have kind of right down the middle, you have the ability to adjust the amount of A and B via that CV input right there. So, you know, there's a real nice, I think, intuitive nature to how this is actually laid out. So again, we talked about this earlier. That's kind of your wet and your dry. This is your headphone level here. You do have attenuator for your input and your output. We're going to try this just in a little bit. So this is your A here, and then your B, and then this is your out. So once we hook it up, and by the way, I'm going to just use the zoom today, no effects. I don't have any effects going, so we're just going to use the zoom. We're going to take the left and right out, panned, hard left, hard right, just to get a sense of what the sound is like. You can look at things like noise floor or whatever you might want to think about as you're listening to my demos. So over here, you have kind of like on other loopers or granular devices, you have things like, you know, choosing the position of your sound based on, it is affected by these modes. I should have mentioned that. So you have real mode, which is like a traditional tape. And this is really slick here. Check that out. When you change the mode, the color changes, at least for the first two. So this is real mode, and that's going to be like a traditional tape recorder. And you can particularly, I was messing with it today, you can particularly hear a difference when you start to modulate some of the stuff on each deck, such as position and size. And by the way, very easy and intuitive. If you want to modulate position from either of those inputs, you would put that to the top. If you put it to the middle, it's going to modulate both position and the size. So again, the size of your loop. So I believe this will be smallest and this will be largest. I think it's up to about 42 seconds depending on overdubbing. I haven't done anything that long, and I think it'd be rare for me to do a 42-second loop. I have one of the new Field Tone Weaver, which is a mini sampler. It's just a one knob sampler, but stereo, not really a looper. It's more of an aleatoric sonic devices, and that's 2 seconds. So I think if 2 seconds is good enough, I can certainly get by with 10 or even 15 or 20. But 42 seconds, I think, plus that might be affected by overdubbing. I'm not entirely sure on that. So I believe that's the smallest to largest size of your loop. And then position, kind of like on your Morphogene or other modules. This is really fun. What I was doing today, and I'll show you in my first experiment, is dialing in and creating kind of a percussive stereo device based on changing the position, and I think mostly the position, but a little bit the size as well. We'll check that out later. So again, the real mode, the slice mode is going to be more like kind of chopping up beats. And then the drift mode, I'm not entirely sure. And again, it stays blue. I'm assuming drift. And one of my other loopers I have, if you call it a looper, is my Soma Cosmos. And one of the things that's cool about the Cosmos is depending on which algorithm you choose, you can have the sound sort of move in the stereo field and sort of affect the previous sound. And of course, much different principle. If you have a Soma Cosmos, it has the ability to overwrite the amount of new material coming in. So very different principle. And again, what I always say about any of these devices is if you're looking for a looper, to get something that's going to match your needs as a performer, as a musician, composer, etc. So these are the various modes. We'll have to see. We'll probably try the slice first. Again, position and size. These are going to be on each of your sides, your envelope amount. So if it's right here, it's going to be basically no envelope. And then as you start to move up, you can affect the attack and the release. I'm not sure how many stage envelopes, but I believe these icons refer to kind of like, would that be long attack and then quick release? And that's the opposite, but haven't tried these yet. So we'll check those out later. So that kind of explains all of these components. Again, we'll have to wait and see what happens with our effects here. Excited about that. Again, A and B choice here. You can use CV to affect the amount of that, which could be cool because having stereo, and by the way, one of the things for me that's mandatory on any looper is to have a stereo field, because that just gives you more excitement. And I just realized as I'm talking about all the loopers, some of my Chase Bliss audio pedals that I have, such as Mood 2, so many of those pedals also have features more like delay pedals, but they certainly create loops of sorts, and then you can modulate those over time, and they're really wonderful to work with. And I think that's why there's a market for something like this, is we realize the power, the potential of playing with sound in the context of a looper. So for me, to have a looper, it has to be in stereo. I want modulation sources. And then in this case, there's all these extra features, which are bonuses. I don't know if this does anything or if it's just a logo. So far, it hasn't done anything. But down here, you're going to notice there's the Alt button. So when you press these, it will allow you to do something else, either start the record, or in the case of the built-in quasi-sequencers, it will allow you to start that and then tap in a pattern. We'll do a little bit of that as well. When you go to start a recording, you hold the Alt, and that indicates it's armed. It's going to detect whether there's a signal or not coming in. Since I don't have a signal coming in, nothing is happening there. And if I play it, presumably the buffer's going to be blank. Haven't tried this yet, but just trying to see if you have to stop it. Looks like you have to stop it before you can maybe punch in and re-record. Again, when the loop is playing and you get this nice feature here that kind of shows you the loop state, if you switch in the different modes, you're going to see some different colors here as well. Real mode versus the slice mode. So I like the use of color on here as well. And again, I can just stop that there. You have the reverse buttons here too for A and B that will allow you, again, there's nothing in this particular buffer, so it's not playing. This one doesn't have anything, but we had hit record and stopped it. So there's probably some thing in the buffer there. So I think that's kind of the main features. Again, it's brand new to me. What I'm gonna do now is, let's hook it up. I'm gonna just get my headphones. And the first thing I wanna do is, I'm not gonna do anything in stereo here. I have my MacBook set up, and I'm gonna bring up my favorite file, one of my favorite files. And what this particular file is, I'm trying to remember on one of my VSTs, what I did one time, it's a VST that organizes all my drum samples. I just kind of ran my mouse through all the samples and it triggered each one in a very quick pattern. And I love the sound of it. So I use this file. I've used it with Morphogena. I've used it with other loopers because it has constant transients that are changing. There's timbral changes, and it's just a very cool file that I can load into here, again, via these, the inputs. I'm gonna do an input here and check the level. Let's do that right now and see where we're at level-wise. You're gonna just hear, should be, is it the left channel? Let's hit play. So that you're probably hearing, if you're hearing some noise, and we'll try this with some electroacoustic stuff with some contact mics, you're probably hearing a lot of noise here because I'm just taking this straight headphone out from the MacBook, so you're gonna get all that noise introduced. But let's just do it for the heck of it. So let's do our first sample. And I'm just gonna trigger this after I start playing it, and it'll immediately do the recording. So let's try this. Okay, so you're now just hearing the buffer sound here in the Spotykach. And you're hearing some hum there again. I think that's the headphone output from the computer. So just deal with that, I guess. Let's do channel B as well. We're gonna put in the same sample, but of course it's not gonna be synced at any level. Let's see what our level's like. Turn this down. Still getting a little bit of that. Actually, we'll just stop that channel. That's even easier. So let's see what the level is like here on B. I'm trying to get these the same if possible. So let's hit play. Okay, so we can go ahead and record. Okay, so now I'll just pull that out, and again, that's obviously the headphone out from the MacBook that's creating all that noise. It's not on the Spotykach. You're gonna hear actually some of that hum, but it's because I'm using the headphone out. And obviously, I should have used my audio interface. But we can start and play each of these together. And make some adjustments. So right there, I believe this particular sound immediately justifies this purchase. This is exactly kind of what I want to be able to do. And that is to have two stereo channels. I can immediately adjust the size and the position of this and create interesting percussive beats across each of the stereo channels. And again, I have this in, I had that in the slice mode, I guess. Yeah, they're both in slice mode. Let's just flip to the real mode and hear the difference. Mess with the sound a little bit here again. Just adjusting position, the pitch knob, and the size on each channel. So bringing in more of the loop now, a longer loop on each side. Again, man, that right there is, yeah, I mean, two simple samples of this patch that I have here on the computer, this audio file, and you have some really cool industrial drum beats that could be used with Eurorack and everything else in between. One of the things I can maybe try, I'm just trying to see on real mode, again, brand new to me here. If I take the LFO out, and again, I think that's the amount. Let me turn off channel A. Channel B is still playing. So should we try the, I don't know if the volt per octave will do anything in this particular, do you hear anything happening? Let's see. Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, you hear a lot happening. That's super cool. And I can slow down the speed of the LFO. And what's really cool is I can do the volt per octave there, and I can use this LFO to mess with either position, size, or both. So let's try position first. See if we hear anything happening. Again, maybe the speed of the LFO. Okay, what about the size? We'll go down for size. Oh yeah. You're getting different kind of movements of that file again that has all these crazy drum percussion transients in it. Super cool. And then just for the heck of it, let's switch to slice mode and see what happens. Oh, that is sweet. Wow. Oh, listen to that. Oh. Wow. Digging that. I'm going to adjust the position again. It's going to change where the sonic information is being taken from. Gets more complex because now we have our LFO going as well. Totally take that out. Leave this one in. And now we're getting more of that traditional loop without as much modulation. What if we adjust, modulate both position and size? Right there. Okay. I think the last one maybe is the envelope follower on this side. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't read what those types of modulation sources are yet, so. Okay, so anyway, super cool. If you're curious, by the way, if we go back to real mode, what does it sound like in reverse? We can do that as well. That's a reverse. So it kind of has that glitchy sound. And maybe we'll play A side. Reverse on both. And then when you stop it, it just goes to the stop state, and you could, of course, restart by hitting play. And again, you can adjust. Let's try that real quick. Let's use our modulator from one of the channels to adjust the amount. I don't know if you're going to hear the panning changing left to right, but let's try it out. So this is just B, just A. And again, if you're hearing that little hum, that's the output from my MacBook. You're not hearing it now, obviously, but you're going to hear that in the background of each loop if you listen carefully. But let's try to adjust this amount. Oh yeah. And you're seeing that the modulator and the A and B lights are synced. So yeah, it's definitely modulating it, right? Yeah, let's try this. Oh, that's cool. And again, you can adjust the amount and the speed. You can watch the lights to give you a visual sense of what's going on. Maybe no modulation now. Let's see. Okay, there's a little bit. So super cool. I love the built-in modulation. And again, if you have, sample and hold circuits, if you have other modules, you can just go crazy with the possibilities here of changing how everything sounds. I want to show you one thing I tried earlier that's kind of cool. Actually, maybe first, I'll try to see. I'll show you the mini sequencer at the end of this audio demo. But the thing I wanted to show you is we'll go to the slice mode. And what I did earlier was, I'm going to try this again, is I just adjusted the position and the size knob and almost got a sense of bringing back kind of the original source material with all those transients, which are literally kind of doing this super fast. But you're getting these cool drum beats that I can actually add to with the metronome, which one of the developers said is kind of like a bass drum that you can bring in as well, but I think it's intended as a metronome. So let's just start the A side. And I'm gonna dial this back so you can see the size is down, very beginning, end of the loop. And I haven't messed with the envelopes yet, but you can kind of see the effects of them here. We'll leave that down. And let me just try to dial in a cool sound here. Oh, there was something there. I like that beat right there. This is one of the things I want to do on a looper, this exact situation. I'm basically creating on my own micro drum beat that's based on, again, the slice mode parameters and adjusting the size and position. So now I can bring in, and it should be, I think, similar because we have one clock source, but let's bring in the B side and kind of match a beat, contrast with the A side. That's cool, man. Oh man. Well, that is a ton of fun. I mean, that is just absolutely, so far, this is blowing me away, what it's doing. This is exactly the kind of application I've been really searching for. This very thing I'm doing here, and again, what I want to do is in these videos and as I learn more about the Spotykach, explore these different modes. I'm super curious about drift mode, which I haven't tried. Again, this is just working on slice mode, but this kind of thing where I can dial in 2 beats, left and right, like this, and use this for a sample, use this for a full track. This could be the start of a track, and then I could have the rest of my Euro rack added to this. And then as I go along, again, very easy just using this. It's not even a technique, right? I'm just basically selecting, in this case, pretty small size of each of the buffers, keeping that low as opposed to a long sample with all those crazy transients from my file. Again, that's called mess. And then I just can adjust slightly the position knob, and I'm getting a new rhythm. I can adjust the pitch. Again, this is all in the slice mode, and then really have these super cool beats that can be polyrhythmic or whatever I want it to be. I can adjust between the A and the B, modulate that, etc. So I just see a ton of possibility here working with the Spotykach. So I think I'll bring this video to a close, and I want to get this one just posted so you can check it out if you're curious. And then some of the future ones, we'll do some more electroacoustic experimentation, because I really want to use some of my contact mics and other devices, shakers, homemade instruments, homemade percussion boxes, and really see what we can do here in terms of maximizing using the Spotykach. So this is my first experience with it. Again, check out some of these other videos I'll produce for you, and I hope you get a chance to check out this super cool instrument. So far, it's one of the instruments that I think I've been the most excited about from just getting it from the beginning. Again, we don't even have the 2 effects units on each of the A and B buffers. So that's going to be exciting once we get those going. By the way, I didn't show you. Let me just show you real quick before we close out how this mini sequencer works here. Not entirely sure on how this is going to be implemented, if any changes are going to come. But from what I understand of it, with these touch pads, as you can hear there, you can trigger the sample. So I think what's going to happen is we can adjust this on the fly. Yeah, so you can kind of scroll through positions and find a bit in the buffer that you like. And obviously, as fast as I press this, oh, here's something cool we can do. Let's do this. This is really, truly a playground, as they say. Let's try this. So let's set these both to adjusting position and size of our buffer. And then let's just hook up our 2, how should we do it? Just the 2 modulation sources. And we'll adjust both the position and the size. And then I'm just going to kind of finger drum it as we play it. And we should get some pretty wacky alterations of the sound here. Why don't I turn up the modulation on each side, and let's try this out. Pretty crazy. Now, what if we just do position? Let's try that. Not size. That's cool. Because this was getting a little crazy just because it was obviously modulating the amount of each of the buffers. If I keep it really small on both sides in terms of the size, the LFOs are just going to modulate the position in the buffer. We could switch to real mode. It's a little different, right? Yeah, less dramatic. Keep it on slice mode. pretty cool. So let's check out one more thing. It also involves these two pads on the A and the B, and that is engaging. Basically, it's just going to automate the MIDI sequencer. So to get this to work, I believe, if I'm doing it correctly, I hold the Alt button and then tap that once, and then it should be engaged. There isn't really a light showing that from what I can see, but now I can tap out a pattern. And then if I touch this again, it should play that pattern. Let's try that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, do we need a larger size or no? Oh. No, let's keep that a small. Let's just keep that really small. Okay, that's pretty good. So let's do for side B. And again, we'll try to keep our amount of the buffer really teeny. So to engage, hit the Alt and then tap it. And then now I just tap my rhythm. And then hit that again and play. Okay, and then we have our kind of our sequence at which is triggering it, which we can also do with the touchpads. Love that feature. Super cool to have these two triggers. Makes me think of the old Pressure Points module or some of the others that allow you to do very haptic touch-based kind of trigger things. Let's play both at the same time and see how they sync. I could choose a different position. Maybe we could do the volt per octave again. Whoa. That's super cool. So yeah, I mean, obviously just touching the surface here, but I'm doing all this just using that one audio file, which has those crazy transients, and then just really experimenting across the whole unit. So this is the first instance here using Spotykach. I hope you had a chance to get one yourself. And if not, you know, maybe this looper will be something that you'll be interested in. So certainly keep an eye out for more of my videos and more information from Synthux Academy. And I'm excited to get the effects going and some of the other features here that are probably coming out in a future firmware update. So thanks very much for listening, and have fun with your gear.